Hey guys, Jeff Alberts here from 3D Muscle Journey, and welcome back to Pragmatic Bodybuilding. So today I want to share how I've trained safely over the past year by reducing axial loading of my spine to keep my lower back happy while still training effectively. And the definition of axial loading of the spine defined by ChatGPT is any force or weight that is applied along the vertical axis of the spine, compressing it from top to bottom. This type of loading occurs in exercises where resistance is directly transmitted through the spine, such as squats, deadlifts, overhead presses, and even standing calf raises. Axial loading can contribute to the spinal compression, which may be problematic for individuals with degenerative spine conditions like narrowing disc space or retrolisthesis, as it increases stress on the intervertebral discs and facet joints. And that right there is my story. In early 2024, I learned I've been dealing with degenerative spine issues, including narrowing disc space at L4, L5, and L5, S1, along with retrolisthesis at L5, S1 by 5 millimeters. And that was diagnosed via an x-ray and from my doctor. After learning this, it all made sense as to why squatting patterns and hinges such as deadlifts and RDLs felt really off for me. Not so much severe pain, but rather a feeling of discomfort, like I couldn't groove the exercises too well anymore. But there was one occasion with RDL. It all came to a head last year when I ended up with a disc bulge and pretty severe sciatica down my right leg, and I literally lost the ability to raise off the ground with my right foot. Let's just say the pain was pretty intense, super uncomfortable, and I was very limited as far as my overall movement. With the help of the team's PT and injury reduction and management specialist Nick Licamelli, we focused on what we could do in regards to stretching, walking, which was super beneficial, and my training, which performing exercises that didn't load my spine. I'll get into this more a bit later. Now, it's not so easy to just let go of those bigger movements where it's fun to move some heavy ass weight. I've had my fun squatting north of 400 pounds, deadlifting around 500 pounds, and doing RDLs for 4 plates. The ego loves to lead us, and that can be a double-edged sword. The ego helps us to progress well at times, but on the other side of this sword, the ego can be too selfish and lead us down a bad path. With that said, because I do have a lot of past experiences in my training, it's been a lot easier as an older bodybuilder to embrace humility, to let humility lead me, and it really hasn't let me down in any way. So of course, repeating those big lifts would be a huge mistake, but in order to change my approach to my training, it all had to start with acceptance of my current environment. I had to humble myself even more and accept that my body is changing. I'm aging, and while I still love training and a passion to compete on a high level, I knew I needed to find a way that serves me well rather than breaks me down even further or much faster. I focused on what would allow me to train consistently and productively for the long haul. And that's exactly what I want to share with you today, because as you guys know, I'm pretty good at the long game. There's a reason I'm now in my 39th year of training and making my way back to Worlds. So this past year, I made a conscious effort to reduce the amount of axial loading. So no more barbell squats, no deadlifts, no RDL, no bent over rowing, no standing overhead pressing, or no Smith machine standing calf raises in my programming. But that doesn't mean I stopped training hard or aiming for progression. It just means I got a little wiser with my exercise selection. For quads, I moved away from back squats and hack squats, focused more on exercises that load the quads without excessive spinal compression, and my go-to exercises are belt squats, leg press, split squats, and leg extensions. Not all at the same time. usually one or two of those movements in my program at a given time. For glutes, I went away from deadlifts and RDLs to now a machine hip thrust where my low back is really protected. For hamstrings, I went away from seated and lying leg curls because my lower back lacks the mobility and the stability now. So now I go to a unilateral standing leg curl where there's literally zero issues on my low back. For calves, no more Smith machine calf raises. I predominantly roll with unilateral dumbbell calf raise where again there's minimal axial loading. By structuring my training this way, I was still able to get in quality leg work without putting too much burden on my lower back. Now, for my back training, I focused on movements that don't cause excessive spinal loading, such as chest supported rows, pull downs, seated cable rows, and pullovers. So for my shoulders, standing overhead press, I went away from that because again, there's a decent amount of axial loading there, and that can definitely sneak up on you. So instead of standing overhead pressing, I opted for a seated dumbbell shoulder press. And for lateral raises, when my back is feeling a little uncomfortable, I opt for a supported version. So using an adjustable bench, I set it upright so that way I can lean my entire torso against the bench and it takes a lot of the burden off the lower back. By making these adjustments, I can keep training my shoulders without overloading my back. Now, one of the biggest things I've learned over the years is that longevity is far more important to me than short-term perceived optimal. Successful longevity is more about humility than it is about the ego. Listening to my body and adjusting exercise selection, the volume and the intensity as well to keep my training pain-free. Using controlled rep cadences and focusing on quality execution over just moving the load or just focusing on the numbers. Implementing deloads when necessary, not just when I feel beat up, but rather as preventative maintenance to ensure I'm always staying fresh. By doing all of what I've mentioned in this video, I was able to train consistently all year without any major setbacks. I'm 53, going on 54, but when I get on the world stage in November, the goal is for my physique to look young at heart. So if you're dealing with lower back issues or just want to train smarter, I hope these insights help. And remember, this is all my own experience. It's always best to seek professional help if you're dealing with any type of injury. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe for more content. And I just want to say thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.